Good morning and welcome to Truck Weight Analysis Weight Distribution Fundamentals. TruckScience partnered with NTA in 2019 to offer members a next level solution for calculating axle weights. We extend a special welcome to NTA members joining us this morning. My name is Sorcha O'Grady and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at TruckScience. Weight analysis is fundamental to good truck design, and this webinar is for people with an interest in vehicle weight management who'd like to learn more about the TruckScience Axle Weight Calculator. When we think of good truck design, there are many considerations to be taken into account, so let's take a quick look at some of those considerations before we get into a live demo of the Axle Weight Calculator. We need to consider the regulations in the state or states in which the truck will be operated. These regulations vary depending on the number of axles, axle spacing, tyres, and much more. We need to comply with OEM ratings, including gross vehicle weight rating, gross axle weight ratings, and more. We need to ensure that axle weight distribution supports steering and braking ability, for example, by ensuring that a significant portion of the total weight is carried on the front axle. We will usually have a goal of maximizing payload capacity, and we want to right-size the truck, both to reduce capital cost and fuel consumption. We want to avoid undue maintenance or rework, or indeed invalidating the vehicle warranty. We need to be mindful of rollover stability by keeping the center of gravity as low as possible. Turning radius becomes important, for example, when a garbage truck will need to turn in a residential area. There are lots of other considerations too, from site infrastructure, driver needs, and internal standards stipulated by your organization. But in general, those are some of the things we need to bear in mind when laying out a vehicle, and we will cover them directly or indirectly when we get into the live demo in just a moment. This webinar will be a basic introduction to the TruckScience Axle Weight Calculator for people who are pretty new to the tool, and a refresher for those who are a little rusty. Even regular users may pick up a few tips. We'll cover how to calculate axle weights and center of gravity. We'll check compliance against OEM ratings, state regulations, and your organization's own internal best practice guidelines. I'll help you to realize your vehicle's payload potential. I'll show you how to use the TruckScience library of product specs and how to have something added to it. I'll also explain the options for having your own products added to our library. I'll show you how to share your designs with other users of the program and how to generate a sign-off document with true-to-life drawings and customized with your own logo. Lastly, I'll show you where to find help if you get stuck. So we're going to pop into a live demo now. I need to share another screen with you. This demo is going to be fast-paced, so just try to bear with me, but if you do find it too fast, we will be happy to arrange a personalized demo for you at another time. So don't worry if you don't catch everything as we go through. To start a new calculation, we must first choose a vehicle. We're going to choose a Ford from the manufacturer specs right here in front of us. We can browse vehicles by brand and range, so we'll choose Ford Super Duty, 4x4. We can also filter, say, for instance, by 550 with a regular cab. We can sort the list by CA. So I'm going to choose this diesel Ford F550 right here with an 84-inch CA to accommodate an 11-foot service body. So just a few pointers before we carry on. We're going to use the left-hand side of the screen to input vehicle, body, equipment, and payload information down here. This dashboard to verify compliance with manufacturer ratings, regulation limits, and our own organization's internal standards, and to display some favorite measurements beneath. This weights table to see detailed weight distribution and compliance information, and to determine the maximum achievable payload. Because this vehicle does not yet have a body, the auto-calculated maximum payload figure in the weights table right here is 0 for now. You'll see that change in a moment. On the right-hand side, we'll be switching views and examining outputs And along the top, we can print, save, and share our calculations and define our preferences for using the program. But let's start adding components. When deciding whether to add an item as body, equipment, or payload, consider the following guidelines. A body has payload capacity, whereas equipment does not, and equipment is permanently attached to the vehicle, whereas payload is loaded on and off. Let's add a body using the second icon on the left. You can choose from these predefined categories or other if your body category is not shown. Let's add a service body. You can search the public library for preloaded standard bodies from well-known brands, for instance, Reading, and I'm going to add this Reading service body right here. You can click on the added body to open the body menu. Since this is a standard spec from Reading, a regular user does not have permission to edit dimensions, but rather just weights and center of gravity. An upfitter may choose to use a standard body like this, whereas a body manufacturer might like to experiment with body design. We provide templates for this experimentation. Note that body manufacturers who wish to make their bodies available in the program can choose to make them available to all users or just approved distributors. I'm going to use the scissors to remove this body for a moment. And add a body again. So I go back to service body. And when we found the Reading body in the public library, at this time I'm going to go to templates. We're going to use a TruckScience template to design our own body. Templates have more generic drawings, but offer greater flexibility in terms of what you can edit. Again, I can click on the body to edit it. You'll see that these template bodies come with sensible default values for weights and dimensions. Now is a good time to point out the color-coded indicators beneath the drawing. The compliance scorecard on the left flags any non-compliance with manufacturer ratings, RAGE or regulations, or our own organization's standards. The green ticks indicate that everything is good so far. Let's open the settings dialog to customize this dashboard. First, we'll choose some regulations that will be applied to our design. You can choose up to 5 at once. You can scroll or just search the list for, say, California, interstate and state. And let's also choose Illinois here just for example purposes. I'm going to go with state and interstate regulations there again. These favorite measurements are the measurements that are shown beneath the compliance dashboard. I've chosen gross weight on vehicle front as a percentage and vertical center of gravity of the vehicle overall. You can also use this settings area to define your own organization standards. So for instance, I have defined gross weight on vehicle front percentage to be a minimum of 20%. This will ensure that if there is less than 20% of the gross weight on the vehicle front, you will see a red X to flag that as an issue. The dashboard can be toggled on and off there. The weights table here shows a breakdown of weights per component in the rows. So for instance, the service body template here, and in the columns across the axle. So front axle, rear axle, and total weights. It also shows the maximum achievable payload for the current setup, and this figure is highlighted in blue here. It is currently 8,205 pounds. The unused capacity row shows any capacity that is being left on the table, so to speak. When the total column shows a utilization of 100%, you know that you are realizing the total payload potential of the vehicle. So there is 0 pounds of unused capacity of the gross vehicle weight rating. The lesser of the gross vehicle weight rating and the regulation limits. The blue text in this weights table or on the drawing indicates a clickable shortcut. So shortcuts open the menu then on the left at the relevant attribute For example, if I click on the body length attribute here, I will get a little box here where I can change the length of the body. And if I pop that in, it will open the entire body menu over here. As you make changes to the body dimensions, you'll notice that the graphic and the weights table update on the fly. So if I click on the body once more, go to length and change the length to 133 inches, you'll see that the graphic responds. If I want to change the height, say from 40 down to 38, we'll respond once more, and we can update the material weight. So if we go to the weight tab here, and change that from 120 pounds per foot to 91. I can also toggle between weight in pounds per foot and just absolute weight. So I've switched that to pounds now, and I've got a weight of 1,009 pounds. Because I have reduced the body weight, you'll see that the payload, maximum payload figure has increased accordingly. You can undo and redo changes up here. Let's add some equipment now using the third icon on the left-hand side. I'm going to add a crane. I'm going to search the public library. Oops, take that one off for a moment. I'm going to search for a lift moorer. You see that the crane's weight has been included now in the total unladen weight here, which has risen to 9697, and we have the payload has been reduced accordingly. Watch how the weight changes on the front and rear axles as we drag the crane along. So you see the front axle starting at 95% utilization, but as I move it towards the rear, some of that weight will be transferred onto the rear axle. Next, we'll add a generator, again as equipment. Oops. I'll find a generator in the other category. I'm going to search for a Lincoln generator. Lincoln is also a partner of NTA, as is TruckScience. We can position this generator by dragging it as we did the crane, or we can pop open the menu to specify its position. So let me just show you how to do that. We go to the position tab. And above and below chassis, 26 inches. You can see that this position has been is specified as frontmost axle to the front of the equipment. If I want to change that, specify relative to the back of cab, I can do that too in my settings here. So now if I go back to edited position, you can specify that as 4 inches from the back of the cab. Let's also override its weight and center of gravity. So I can just set the weight here to 432, and we'll specify a horizontal center of gravity for this piece of equipment as 45%. Note that I can also specify the center of gravity as an absolute value in inches. To see detailed position and dimension attributes for this piece of equipment, I can toggle the pinned dimensions for the generator. So simply click on the generator and then press this pin. And now you'll see there are detailed dimensions and positional dimensions for this for the generator. We could add a step and some outriggers among other items now, but I'm going to skip that step just to save time. So if one of the axles had shown a utilization of 100% and the other significant unused capacity, this would represent an opportunity to gain payload by moving some items around. So to just exaggerate this point, I'm going to temporarily exaggerate the weight of the generator. I'm going to just unpin its dimensions just to unclutter the drawing there. And I'll set the weight of the generator to 4,000 pounds. You'll see now that the front axle has become overloaded. It is at 105% utilization, but the rear has an unused capacity of about 46%. And the payload has been zeroed because the vehicle is no longer complying with manufacturer ratings. So shifting the generator towards the rear can achieve a much more even utilization spread and will bring the maximum payload back up, hopefully. So just watch as I move the generator towards the rear. Now my front axle is on 100% utilization, but I still have 33% unused on the rear. So I carry on going back. You can see I've got 100% utilization of the entire vehicle capacity, with slightly more weight on the front than the rear. But if I can keep pushing the generator back to get to a point where both axles are being pretty evenly utilized. So we'll stop around there. So we've reached the holy grail now of having our total utilization at 100%. As you've seen, the information is input on the left-hand side of the screen, and you'll find the output views here on the right. We're in the side view currently, but we can switch to top view to edit the compartment size of the service body. I'm just going to set the width of those compartments to 25 inches. And I'm going to position this equipment laterally then. So I'll move the crane curbside. And the generator to the roadside. Just pop back to the side view. And before we move on, I'm just going to undo the overridden generator weight. And it reverts back to the original weight of 448 pounds. So now that we have a proposal to agree with the customer, the vehicle GVWR is 17,500 and the payload capacity is 7,355 pounds. We're going to send this design to a draftsman to get a more realistic body drawing for our customer sign-off document. I can just quickly save this body, or save my entire calculation, in fact. For instance, as an NTA webinar. 2304. And then I can share the calculation with other users of the program. So in this case, I'm just going to share it with the fictional draftsman at mycompany.com. I can share it with view and save permissions or edit and override permissions. Jens, I wonder just at this point if there are any questions before I move on.
There have been a couple of questions. One of them in relation to the left-right weight distribution. Sorcha did the top view of that vehicle and positioned the bits of equipment like left-right, but the weight distribution kind of is not calculated on left-right distribution. But as I said to the person who asked the question, I will forward that on to our product manager. It is a request that we've had before, but yeah, it's all our requests are prioritized according to customer demand. Second question was in relation to whether one can customize the wheelbase if an axle is moved. And of course, the answer there, I wasn't 100% clear about whether I understood that question. Whether or not that was in relation to a pusher axle being moved or whether there was the driven axle, but either way, one can customize the wheelbase.
And I can just show you how to do that now quickly. So we've got a CA dimension here. The wheelbase is read-only in this case because CA is enabled. I can either change the CA here by clicking on it, You can change it right here in line, or you can pop it in. I can find this menu over here on the left either. So for instance, I could change that to 88. And you see then the CA becomes 88 here underneath. Or I could unoverride that and I can go to my settings. And if my preference is to specify chassis dimensions as wheelbase rather than cab to axle, I would first change that here. And then I can change the wheelbase dimension again. So it's currently 169.3. So if I were to add on 4 inches again, we'll go to 173.3 and we will be back at the same place again with a CA of 88. I'll just unoverride that. And I'll just show you where to switch between wheelbase and CA again, and that's right here.
So a few more questions have come in. 2 of them are in relation to Canadian regulations. So currently we have what we call the Canadian MOU regulations, which are weights only. But I am very happy to say that I was in a design meeting this morning, and the Canadian regulations are being worked on. Our development team have started working on them this morning. In terms of a release date, I cannot give you one, but I would expect that to be, I would say probably in the next 3 months, I would hope. But the other question is around an EV retrofit. Can you customize the powertrain weight? And the answer there is you can do that by adjusting the front and rear axle weights, or overriding the front and rear axle weights. That's one way of doing it. Or you can add, I suppose, negative weights where you might be saving weight when you retrofit your EV kit. Having said that, the EV retrofit and EVs in general is an area that we want to improve support of in the app. So stay tuned for that. There's another question here, or in fact 2 questions. Is it possible to use the software in metric? The answer to that is yes, it is possible. You can change that on the settings dialog. And Sorcha, you can maybe just demonstrate that or just show it. You can change it there. And the second question is also in relation to the Canadian provincial regulations. So I'm really happy to say that those Canadian regulations are on the way. And that's all the questions up to now. Please do keep the questions coming. I'll answer them as we go along. Thanks.
Thank you, Jens. The one thing I guess we didn't cover there when there was a question about left to right distribution, we do calculate rollover angle. So the vehicle's static rollover angle in this case is 43 degrees, and you will find that under the notes and warnings here on the bottom right. Obviously, the last thing we did now was to send that design to the draftsman for a drawing. So I'm going to imagine that I've just received that drawing back now. I'm going to remove this body and then add the new proper drawing. So I go back into service body and I'm going to import DXF, choose a file, and I'll take this DXF file here. So this is the CAD drawing saved as a DXF file that I've received back from the draftsman. You can position it at 0, 0 if it isn't already there. Then specify a length for this, and remember that was 133 from earlier. Some height attributes, I'll give that 5 inches. 12 here. The 38 is scaled from the drawing. And give some width attributes. We'll give it a width of 94. And then compartment widths, remember, of 25. And then lastly, I want to give it a weight, in this case, 997 pounds. And then I can just save it with my service body 2023-04-26-123. And when I save and add, it is added to my drawing. If I want to click back into the body, I can save it to my team library for my colleagues to access. I can share it to my distributor library so that the list of users that I control, my approved distributors, can add it to their calculations. Or indeed, I can share it to the public library if I'd like it to be available to all TruckScience users. So up to now, we've been using the default maximized simple payload or evenly distributed payload with and we've achieved an optimal maximum payload of 7,366 highlighted here in the weights table. But let's add some user-defined payload items now by switching to detailed payload. I'm going to add a generic payload template. It just gets added to the drawing with some default dimensions. But if I hover over it to highlight it like this and click to edit, I can specify dimensions for it, say 30 or 32 or 32. And a weight of, say, 750 pounds. We'll also give it a recognizable name, like, say, for instance, tools. And we can position it 2 inches from other surfaces. Okay, but let's see first what happens if I accidentally give this a weight of 7,000 pounds. And you see from the drawing and the weights table and the manufacturer ratings indicator here that our front axle is now overloaded. We've run into compliance issues. So let's review where this front axle limit of 6,000 comes from first, because that is what has been exceeded. The gross weight on the front axle now is 7,605, and the permissible is just 6,000. So I click on this permissible value of the overloaded axle, and I can see that the gross axle weight rating here is 6,000, whereas the limit in the states that I have selected above is 20,000. But in this case, the permissible, which is worked out as the lesser of gross axle weight rating and bridge regulation, is just 6,000. Upgrading an axle can sometimes make a problem like this go away. So we can re-rate the axle, say, to 8,000 pounds. And we're back in the green. But because we saw earlier that we could achieve a maximum payload of over 7,000, I'm just going to unoverride that axle back to its original rating of 6,000. And we'll address the compliance issues by dragging the tools towards the rear of the vehicle. As the front axle weight decreases and the rear axle weight increases, we're going to reach a sweet spot at which no axles are overloaded. There we go. But if we go too far back, the rear axle can become overloaded again. So let's just, there we go. So we just need to find a happy place where ideally both axles are being utilized evenly. And that's around here. Remember that these blue values in the table and on the drawing are shortcuts, so we can use this payload link to update the weight of this of these tools back to 750. I'm going to quickly just add a very simple trailer to this. I'm going to start by adding a hitch. And then a center axle drawbar trailer with a beaver tail body. Again, as I said, I know this is moving quite quickly, but you will be able to schedule your own personalized demo if you like in the future. You can add some payload to the trailer as well. And I can drag the bobcat to increase or decrease the tongue weight. You'll see here that the tongue weight is being expressed as a percentage of the total trailer weight. That's the trailer and its payload. That's the percentage of that weight that's on the hitch. To center the bobcat laterally, I just switch to top view again and drag it towards the center. And just go back to side view. So you can explore the views in detail in your own time, but we'll have a quick look at a few of them now. This overview of the vehicle is a detailed breakdown of the vehicle unladen weight. Notice that some of the components are exerting negative weight on the front axle, for instance, the crane here and this hitch. But as the front axle is, let me see, carrying 76% of the total vehicle weight, this is not a problem. Second view we'll check is the bridge view. And this compares the actual weight on each axle group with permissible weights as per the bridge law in the chosen states, or the lesser of each of those chosen states. You can look at the center of gravity view. This is a summary of all of the center of gravity points of all of the components that are on our calculation, but it includes an overall vertical center of gravity here. And that is 34.4 inches from the ground, the vehicle's overall center of gravity. You can toggle any of these on or off the drawing, any of these that are of interest. The drawing, for obvious reasons, they're just not all displayed at once because it can become a little bit busy. The next view we'll examine is the turning radius view. And this is the radius of the smallest circle in which this truck can turn. You see that the inner circle is the curb radius, and the outer one is the wall-to-wall radius. Come back to side view now. So to export the current view to a PDF document customized with my logo, I just simply click this PDF icon up top here. And the PDF will include a sign-off area where both yourself and other stakeholders can sign this document to record that it has been shared. And you can print, download, or email it directly to your customer from within the program. Lastly, if you need help at any time, you can reach out to our team via the live chat here in the bottom right. You can even choose to share your screen with us if you wish to receive old-fashioned over-the-shoulder help. So you know, we enjoy meeting lots of you, our users, through that and gaining insights into how you're using the program and what would make it even more useful for you. So before I save this calculation and head back out to the home screen, are there any other questions now, Jens?
Yes, there have been a number of questions, and I've tried to answer all of them, but I was wondering, could you maybe just cover how the library works when there's a spec missing, a chassis spec missing?
Yes. So as I showed you, we chose a Ford from the vehicle library at the very start of the live demo. If there is a vehicle in there that's, if there's a vehicle that you need that isn't in the library, you can simply ask us to add one, and I'll show you that in a moment when I save out of this calculation. Okay.
The other question was just whether one could add outriggers. You know, obviously outriggers would be useful in this configuration, and maybe you could just demonstrate that briefly.
Okay, so if I go to add equipment here, and you'll see there's a category outrigger. Again, you can find outriggers that are already in the library. You can import your own through DXF files, or you can ask us to add them for you. All right, let me do that again. So here's a sample outrigger. Oh, let me just take a look at this looks like. And you've got the usual spec there then, dimensions, weight, and position. And as I said, if you want one that's not there, you can import a DXF drawing, or you can ask us to add a spec that you provide to us.
Yeah, maybe just while you're in there are a lot of questions about specialty bodies and equipment, and I explained that it is possible to import your own DXF drawing into the app and specify weights, dimensions, and scale it accordingly. And to point out there, maybe when you get to the home screen again, the explainer videos that are available for importing of DXFs and a number of other operations and kind of things you might want to do within the app. Just the last question was around permits, and maybe if you could just open these settings there, and if you open up, I think we do support a couple of permits. If you open the regulations applied drop down, so we do have a number of permits that we cater for, but obviously that's there are a lot of other permits that a lot of other permits out there. As I said to the person asking the question, we're always looking to add more and extend our database. So yeah, I see there are a few more questions coming in now. Can you change the axle spread on trailers? And the answer there is yes, you can change the axle spread. If you drill down into the trailer there, you'll see under dimensions.
This is a standard trailer, so I can't do it on this one, but I'm just going to remove this trailer and I'll do it then.
Okay, well, I think it's probably suffice to say you can change the axle spread on trailers, and okay. So the gentleman has got back there about the tire pressure. I'll get our regulations expert to reach out to you and work through that. I'm not a regulations expert, but I'll certainly get them to reach out to you after the webinar. So there's a question about how one would become a partner to supply aerial applications. I'm not sure I understand that question, but if the question is around how would you supply your aerial platforms into our software, like is that the question? I'm not sure, but by all means, if that is the question, reach out to us. We can assist you with that. If I've misunderstood the question, please perhaps rephrase it so I can understand it. Now, well, that's a nice positive thing to say. There's someone an existing customer that said they have no questions, that they just came here to say our customer care is really good. Well, appreciate that. Thank you very much. And there's a question around pricing, and there's another question around, does the program handle tractor-trailer combinations? So the answer to that question is yes, it does. We do cater for tractor-trailer and even multiple trailers, up to 2 trailers with certain combinations. But Sorcha, maybe you can take the pricing question. The question is around an individual or an organization with 5 to 10 users. What is the process?
Okay, I'll get to that just in a few moments. So maybe just before I come out of this calculation, I'm just going to provide a few tips for existing users, because I know up to now probably a lot of what you've seen here is old news to you. But just to reiterate this, in the settings here, you can switch between state and interstate regulations for all states in the US, and that, as Jens mentioned, the Canadian Memorandum of Understanding, and we will be adding the Canadian provinces there. You can define your favorite measurements to appear here under the dashboard on the left, and these organization standards. So organization standards are kind of best practices that aren't covered by the vehicle manufacturers or the state regulations, and these are just extra checks that you wish to add. So for instance, that your organization insists that there should be a cab to body clearance of 2 inches on all of the bodies that you're currently working on, you can set it up there. You can define your preferred measurement system. We covered that already as a question, so you can switch from imperial to metric there. You can also change the increment. So when I press an up or down, a plus or minus sign, the increment by which the dimension will change. So, you know, if you tend to work on larger vehicles and you want things to change by 6 inches at a time, you should just set that up in here, and the same applies to the weight increment and the percentage increment. You can specify whether you prefer to measure cab dimensions from bumper to back of cab or from front axle to back of cab in here. Chassis dimensions as cab to axle or wheelbase, and body and equipment position relative to the frontmost axle or from the back of the cab. We're nearly there. You can customize your reports with your own logo in here and add company notes that will apply to all reports that are generated on your company account. So you could add a disclaimer or information relating to lead times or whatever in there. And if you are an NTA member, we'd encourage you to add your NTA membership details here, as NTA membership qualifies you for an annual discount off your subscription. So I'm just going to go back out of this calculation now to the home screen, and I'm just going to quickly save this in case there are any further questions on it later. Okay, and I'll go back to the home screen, and this is where we found the new vehicle. So can reset these filters because I've sorted this by Ford 550 regular cab. You can reset those. See the other manufacturer specs that are available. As Jens said, if you are working on a vehicle that is not yet in the library, there is very good coverage of the ranges of vehicles in the library, but if there are particular vehicles that you need that aren't there, you can just simply click on request a vehicle here to ask us to add it for you.
So, okay, just there was a question earlier around RVs. And if you could just scroll your screen down, I'm pretty sure we have some Winnebagos. Yeah, so there's some Winnebagos in there. And I had said to that to that person that we can add more on request. Now there's another question here that's come in. Do you offer cab over engine or cab forward chassis options? And the answer is yes. As long as there's a spec publicly available, we can certainly add that. There's a question coming in here now about, are specs updated on a routine basis for truck info or only when a user requests a refresh? So the way it works, our data team is churning away in the background, adding new ranges, but the minute a customer requests a spec, that request jumps to the top of the queue. So in the background, we are adding new specs. You'll note that a lot of the 2023 Fords, for example, were updated a few weeks ago. So yeah, in short, they are updated regularly. However, given the size, given the vast variety of specs, they won't be up to date. They won't be 100% up to date at any given points in time. Now there's a question there. Can we ask for a vehicle in the library that won't be public in case of non-disclosure agreements, for example? And the answer also to that is yes. So we have different editions that Sorcha, you might cover there now, and that's all the questions up to now.
Okay, and just one other thing I'm going to show you that's kind of related there to if your vehicle is not in the library. So these are manufacturer specs, and you can request a vehicle, but you can also use a TruckScience template, and I'll just show you what that looks like. Let's go with this one. So these are very generic specs, not very pretty drawings, but you can use this to build up a conceptual vehicle spec, and again, just add bodies and whatever you like onto those. Again, say for instance, templates, and you can work away on a kind of a fictional vehicle. Okay, so I'll just show you around the home screen for a moment. This whole section on the right is to do with choosing your vehicle. On the bottom left here, we've got a resources area, and this is Jens mentioned that you can find explainer videos in here for instance, importing a drawing. So that's how to import a DXF file, and preparing a drawing for import. That is how to trace a drawing or reduce the size of a DXF file if you wish to do so. There are lots of other hints and tips in there on how to add your favorite measurements that I showed you, calculate center of gravity, understanding the weights table, and lots more. Calculations shared with me, as the name suggests. I'll find calculations belonging to other users, which they have chosen to share with me in there, so we can collaborate, like in the same way as I shared the calculation with the fictional draftsman earlier. My own saved calculations, pretty self-explanatory. You can perform the usual file management tasks in here, rename, organize them into nested folders and all of that. And I've already explained around the new calculation, the 3 different options for choosing a vehicle there. So that kind of wraps up the live demo. I'm just going to flick back to my presentation now. Okay, so yeah, as I said, that's it for the whistle stop tour. And I know we've covered quite a lot in a very short time, but if you feel that you could still use a personalized demo for yourself or colleagues who weren't able to attend today, I'll be happy to do that for you. You can do that right away by choosing a time on my calendar here at calendly.com/Sorcha-O'Grady. You will also receive a recording of the webinar today, so you can maybe pause it and watch it back in your own time that way. To find out more about TruckScience, then you can take a look at our page on NTA's website, nta.com/TruckScience. You'll find lots of videos and testimonials both on that page and even more of them on our own website, TruckScience.com. We'll have a booth at Waste Expo in New Orleans next week, and we're very much looking forward to being back at NTA's Commercial Vehicle Upfitting Summit in Sandusky, Ohio in September. So I hope to see some of you there too. If you're not already using TruckScience, we'd encourage you to help yourself to a free trial from our homepage, TruckScience.com. And NTA members who add their membership details will have their trial automatically extended from 7 to 30 days just by inputting your membership details. You'll also qualify for a discount, the NTA member discount on checkout. And I've included the pricing information here, as that question normally does come up. So the professional edition for upfitters starts at $600 for one user and $400 per additional user thereafter. The enterprise edition, and that's the edition that Jens just referenced there, if you want to share, as a manufacturer, if you'd like to share body or equipment specs with your installers or approved distributors, upfitters, then the enterprise edition is the one for you. That is also where you can ask for vehicles to be added to the library, but not for general consumption. So somebody asked about, I think, 5 to 10 users, I think it was, on the enterprise edition. So that would be about $5,600 per year for 10 users on the enterprise edition. And that is calculated by $2,000 for the first user on enterprise and $400 per additional user thereafter. As an enterprise, sorry, Jens.
Sorry, the question there was the 5 to 10 users, I suspect, was for the professional edition, but which is then $1,400 less.
Yeah, so 4,200 for 10 users of the professional, and 5 users of the professional for 2,200, I think. If my math is right. Okay, so then, as I said, NTA members get a $50 off an annual subscription on an ongoing basis. And yeah, we have a very good relationship with NTA. We join NTA on the partner booth each year at the Work Truck Week in Indianapolis. And as I said, we'll be back at CVIS, or the Commercial Vehicle Upfitting Summit in Sandusky in September. So we really value our partnership with NTA and our relationship with lots of NTA members. So that's all for today, folks. I realize we're gone slightly over 45 minutes. I think we're at about 50. And thanks very much for all your questions. It's always great to get them. So I'm going to end the webinar now in a moment. If you'd like to receive a quote or anything, just feel free to reply to one of the emails you've received about the webinar and just indicate how many users you think you'll need. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us today. It's been great to have you, and goodbye.